Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Stay Grounded podcast, a podcasting community amplifying BIPOC voices through real conversations about real things. I am your host, Natalie Q, and I am really actually excited about this episode. It's Unpacking Self-Sabotage and 6 Ways to Overcome It. This has been a subject that's very near and dear to me, so I thought I need to discuss this with my community and really giving you guys points on how we can overcome it, but just knowing that it's going to be maybe a never-ending journey. Here's what we're going to learn in this episode. We are going to define what self-sabotaging is. We are going to unpack the root of self-sabotaging for BIPOC folks, because I think that is really important in understanding why it exists. And then I will give you 6 ways that you can overcome the self-sabotaging and self-criticizing. So let's define it. What is self-sabotage? So this is when people do or don't do things that block their success. It prevents them from accomplishing their goals. And this, guys, can happen consciously or unconsciously. Self-sabotaging behavior can affect really our personal and professional success as well as our mental health. A few common self-sabotaging behaviors include procrastination, self-doubt, negative self-talk. And so I am moving to the juicy stuff, unpacking the root of self-sabotaging for BIPOC folks. And I'm going to spend some time on this because I think it's really important, like I said, to understand the roots of what causes self-sabotaging behavior in our communities. So the first one I'll start off with is historical trauma. Many BIPOC communities, they've experienced historical trauma such as colonization, slavery, or forced displacement. And these traumas can really unconsciously lead to deep sense of collective pain and feeling of hopelessness, which can then manifest, of course, in self-sabotaging behavior. The second one, internalized racism. We're living in a society where, unfortunately, and it's so sad to say, racism is still very much alive. And that can really lead to internalized racism. And we might unintentionally internalize these negative stereotypes, which then leads to self-doubt, our low self-esteem, and of course, the self-sabotaging behaviors we're talking about, because they're rooted in the belief that we are inherently inferior. And then now we're going to move on to number 3, cultural expectations. And so what does that mean? So cultural expectations within our BIPOC communities, such as the pressure to succeed, to represent our community, can really lead to immense stress. I've lived it, and we're looking to be the success story, and by not meeting these expectations that our own community puts on us unconsciously, it results in a self-sabotaging behavior because it makes us feel safer than taking on such a big responsibility that our community puts on us. Where are we? 3, lack of access. And this one's huge. Limited access to quality education, healthcare, employment, and other opportunities due to systematic racism can limit the resources available for our personal and professional growth. And so this lack of access can really contribute to those feelings of helplessness and self-sabotage. The next one, cultural trauma. BIPOC communities might also experience cultural trauma, such as the elimination of our cultural identities or the suppression of our native languages and traditions. And these traumas can really create a sense of disconnect, of loss, and leading to self-sabotaging behavior is really a way for us to cope with this disempowerment. And another one, and this one is huge for me because this is something that happened to me as a child and as an adult, is really our childhood experiences. And this goes into 2 things. Modeling behavior. So as children, we really learn by observing the behavior of significant adults in our lives. If you grow up in an environment where adults engage in this self-sabotaging behavior, they might internalize these patterns and not really realize it. In the same respect, not seeing someone do what you aspire to do it really gives you a sense of I can't do this or this is impossible, which can in turn create, again, the self-sabotaging because of your lack of modeled behavior. And then the second point to this is the formation of our core beliefs. During childhood, we develop core beliefs about ourselves, others, and the world. And if we grow up in an environment where we are constantly criticized, neglected, abused, we may internalize beliefs that we are unworthy, unlovable, or incapable. And these negative core beliefs then manifest as a self-sabotaging thought and behavior in our adult lives. This self-sabotaging word is getting so tricky to say because I'm repeating it so much. But the final one is media influence. And this one's huge in today's time. Media really portrays very unrealistic beauty standards, lifestyle, and success stories that can create really feelings of inadequacy and low self-worth. So then we get to a point of comparing ourselves to these idealized images, and that can lead us to self-sabotaging behaviors driven by a desire to fit these standards. And that's why it's really important for us to be very intentional about the media we consume. Maybe disconnecting can be something that you can do, because I know that's very hard in today's age, but even a day makes a huge difference. So now that we've kind of unpacked what the root of where all of this comes from for our BIPOC community, I want to really turn over to strategies and techniques that we can use. And there are 6. These are some that I've personally used, and actually all of these I've used. And so let's just begin. Number 1, you develop self-awareness. And I know this is, everybody says self-awareness, but what does that mean? How do you become aware? Well, you have to ask yourself the right questions. And when you ask yourself the right questions, you can really journal about them, because when you're on paper, it's a really beautiful way to fully express yourself without any limits, no constraints. And so these are some of the questions that you can really begin to ask yourself. What negative beliefs about yourself do you contribute to your self-sabotage? Where do you think these beliefs originated from? And then one of the prompts that I really love to use is when, my self-sabotage comes to play, because it does very often, is a best case scenario prompt. So what would your life look like in a best case scenario without self-sabotage, without self-criticism? What would your success story look like? That's a really good prompt that I use when that happens for me. And I'm going to leave these questions in the show notes so you can use them on a daily basis. Another way to develop self-awareness is to use mindfulness techniques to sit with this feeling, because you need to be aware of it. You can meditate, you can go on walks to evaluate what you're feeling, but really take the time. Maybe you want to grab tea, maybe you want to just find a way where you are actually sitting and processing, because this is one of the things that I really did, and it helped tremendously in becoming aware of what was happening in my body and in my mind. Number 2, challenge those negative beliefs. You need to identify what they are by writing them all and making them exist on paper. You cannot ignore them, and this is my big thing. In order to reframe what you're thinking, you must not ignore them. You have to make them exist on paper, as painful and as uncomfortable as that is. And now, after you've done that, you challenge them. Have a true conversation out loud about your beliefs. Thank them for trying to keep you safe, but you're really ready to let them go and grow. So just allowing to have that conversation, just give it a personality. It makes them really exist in your space. And that's how we can move forward in challenging these negative beliefs about our self-sabotage behavior. And you can use things like affirmations, writing, grounding to shift these thoughts. Number 3, build self-compassion. A lot of us, it's very hard for us to do this because we are just not used to this, and this is really uncomfortable. But studies have really shown that having self-compassion is related to happiness, wisdom, and emotional resilience. And so how can you do this? Here are a few ways. Write yourself a love letter on a daily basis. This is really important. I try to do this once every season. If I'm going through something, or just to walk through any of the emotions that are not serving me. Number 2, eat good foods, because eating good foods lifts your energy. Affirming yourself when the bad thoughts come in. That's the reframing I'm talking about. Go from negative to positive immediately. Hear that negative thought, switch it. Even if you don't believe it, you will begin to eventually. Be gentle with yourself through rest, self-love. Look at yourself in the mirror, hype your ass up. You need to hype yourself up, because if you don't hype yourself up, no one is going to do it for you. And know that you are going to fall back into this trap of self-sabotaging. It does not disappear, but you can use these tools to help navigate through it. It's really important that you understand that it will not leave. It is going to be a part of you, and it is really up to you to create that relationship with it so that when it does come up, you know how to navigate through it. Number 4, setting realistic goals and expectations. This one's huge. Sometimes we set goals that are so huge it makes absolutely no sense. Everything great starts small. So start small, small habits, small ways, small. Embrace the process and not the outcome. I used to always embrace the outcome and always dreamt about the outcome, but then I realized, and I'm setting this as a reminder to you guys, that this will be your story one day. The failures, the process, the adventure. So embrace it while it's here. Get uncomfortable with failure. This one took me a long time, actually. Without failure, there's no growth. So it's really important to embrace it and reframe how you see failure. I know that a lot of our communities taught us that failure is bad. And so we have to reframe that, because failure actually means that there's a lesson, a growing pain, a growth moment. So get used to failing and reprogram yourself into believing that failure is actually a good thing, because it really helps you process the self-sabotage and allows it to slowly disappear from your everyday life, right? Number 5, seek support. So we're just not perfect. And we need to have support from friends, family, community, professionals that can really help us overcome the thoughts that go on in our heads. When you seek the support, you begin to see how unrealistic these thoughts truly are, which is insane. I started to realize that, and it was really a game changer. Most of the things that we think about are really unrealistic, and others really help you navigate through these overthinking and negative thoughts. So seeking support is really a huge one for me, and one of the things that I did and really helped. Number 6, and this is the last one, look up success stories. This is really interesting because when you look up other people's success stories, and even in their journeys, you realize that you're not the only one who's experiencing this feeling. So I recommend that you go read stories of people who have overcome this, people that can relate to what you're feeling. Listen to podcasts about it, read about success stories. And honestly, this makes you feel seen. It makes you feel less alone. So let's recap the 6. 1, develop self-awareness. 2, challenge your negative beliefs. 3, build self-compassion. 4, set realistic goals and expectations for yourself. 5, seek support. 6, look up success stories. Right? So let's recap what we did in this episode. We defined what self-sabotaging was. We unpacked the root of self-sabotage for BIPOC folks. And we went over 6 ways to overcome self-sabotaging. So I want you to really sit and really reflect on your own self-sabotaging tendencies and take a proactive step towards changing it, because without action, you can listen. And I say this in a lot of my workshops, a lot of my retreats, events, podcast episodes. If you do not action what you are listening to or the workshops that you're going to, you doing all of this, I'm sorry to say it, but it's pointless. You need to action what you're listening to. So take the proactive step to slowly getting there. And, if you're feeling called to, I want you to share your story and tag us, or maybe you don't want to be that public and you want to reach out with questions. And please feel free to do so. I'm always open to helping. And, if you're really seeking further support, connect with me. Let's start you on a path of abundance, self-love, of less self-sabotaging through maybe our one-on-ones or our group sessions. We can really work on this together so that it's in existence, right? But you're learning how to navigate through it and it's not taking over your life, because that causes a lot of stress. So I wanted to kind of end this with telling you my own story about self-sabotaging. You know, for many years, I went through a lot of creative outlets, and I remember just always stopping myself from doing great things. And when things got really real, I would yank myself out of what I was doing and say, oh no, well, I'm okay. I want to do something else. And then I realized that it became a pattern. And I was like, why is this becoming a pattern? This is super weird. And again, right, the awareness. This is where the awareness came in, right? And I started to really write about the negative beliefs I had about myself, around why I kept quitting instead of continuing. And then I realized that there was just a lot of things that I was contributing to my self-sabotaging. I had negative beliefs where I started to reframe. And then in the process, I learned how to really have compassion for myself during the process, even though that was not easy, because I'm not saying that it's easy and it was all flowers and chocolates. It's just, that's not realistic. You're going to go through ups and downs during this journey. And so I had to build a lot of self-compassion during this. And I started to build actual goals for myself. Goals, I used to dream so big. And not that that's bad, but there were never small steps to this. It was just like this big thing, and I just was not allowing it to grow into something beautiful through consistency. And so once I set my real expectations for my goals, I started to seek more community. And once I did, I realized that I'm not alone in a lot of these things that we feel. And so now I'm sitting in a place where I'm really sitting in my power, and I am a mindfulness artist, and I love helping people through meditation and sound healing and journaling and art therapy. And these are the things that have helped me. And so now I'm sitting in my power. And it's not to say that self-sabotaging doesn't come up, because it does. It still exists in my life, and it's very alive. But I know I use tools to quiet them down. And it's really helped me get to know myself and a lot of the things that were going on in my head. And so I just really wanted to tell you my story, because I love to be as human as possible in this podcast, and just letting you guys know that I'm not perfect, and a lot of these things I'm still navigating through, but I'm using the right tools to get there. And so I wanted to end this by expressing so much gratitude for you guys listening in and tuning in to every episode. And for next week, we will be having the beautiful Yvonne Hernandez, and she is a bilingual meditation teacher. And we are going to talk about why having a daily meditation practice matters. So stay tuned for that. And if this episode or any episode or all episodes resonate with you, I would love if you can connect with us by following us on Instagram, the Stay Grounded Podcast, or actually, if you can leave us a comment, follow our podcast. This really helps us get the word out on helping our communities grow and helping this podcast grow. But I'm super excited to have you here. Thank you again for listening in and for really taking the time to dedicate this time to you, because it just means that you are on the right path to wanting to grow and to wanting to change. And I hope that this helps. And remember that I'm really here to help you guys. So if you are called, please reach out. Please reach out. Even if it's for conversation, reach out. I'm here to help you guys. So till next time, guys, thank you so much. Bye.